Thursday night, it is the Jets Hall of Fame induction. Teemu Selanne and Teppo Numminen, two of the great Finns in NHL history and two of the great Winnipeg Jets of all time going on. I want to go back to your trade to the Winnipeg Jets, or actually maybe a little bit before that, because, of course, that was Teemu Selanne's rookie season. You were playing over on the other side of the league, the other conference.
Right.
What do you remember before you became a Jet about the buzz that Selanne was creating around the league with that record-setting goal-scoring season as a rookie before you were traded to Winnipeg?
Well, you're right. We didn't know a lot about it. I'd have to go back and look, and I probably should have done this a long time ago, whether we had played them or not before the trade. We had traded just after Christmas, Ty and I. And but everybody knew what not just Teemu was doing, but the rookie line of Keith and Alex Zamnoff and Teemu. And then you see the numbers almost every night. This guy wasn't just scoring every night; he was scoring multiple goals every night. And then we found out that we were traded. Ty and I, we got to get into the room and see these guys. And I remember my first meeting with Teemu, smiling, coming in late, of course, for practice. And trying to, when you get traded, you're always trying to make yourself comfortable or feel like you're welcome in a room. And it takes a little bit of time and talking to guys and just kind of looking around and seeing what was going on. And we were all getting ready for practice, and Teemu was in his street clothes still as guys were leaving to go out to the ice down the tunnel. And I think I had asked Dean Kennedy, is he hurt? Is he not practicing? He goes, oh no. He can dress in 2 minutes and he'll be out there before John blows his whistle. So he was always late. I know it bugged some of the veteran guys, but he was an interesting cat. But then when you got to see him on the ice and how fast he skated and how well he played and how well he read the game and then that shot off stride, it was really truly something to be part of. And just to see him, I think we had 2 or 3 games at home. And, he was 7 goals away from the record, and there's no way he was going to get 7 in 2 games, and he ended up doing it. And it was just unreal. Like, anytime we thought he couldn't do it, he just did it. And it was really neat to be part of.
It would have been a really interesting dynamic for a player that, had played, this was your 3rd team at that time and ended up going elsewhere later on in your career. But you were coming in, adding some toughness, but also some veteran presence to a team that was really being led by a number of guys that were just getting their feet wet in the National Hockey League, and yet playing like veterans and scoring like stars.
Well, it's true. And I think when we got comfortable there, and they had some good veteran guys there. Mike Eagles was an honest, hardworking guy, and Dean Kennedy, as I said, and Dave Manson came over, and we knew that the success of that team was going to be the development of the young guys, and we could try to teach them the best we could of what we knew, and they did that. Keith became the leader that he was, and Teemu became the comfortable player he was, and Alex was just so skilled. But it was really, really neat.
Kris, you mentioned that week where Selanne was chasing Bossy's record, and there were 2 games at home. I was up in my spot up at the top of the South End in the Gods watching the games. And I still remember those games maybe as much as any. I mean, right up there with Dave Elliot's overtime goal and some of the highlights we've had since the team came back. What do you remember about being on that team and just watching a player do things that we've never seen before? And I'm not sure there's ever been a guy get hotter than Selanne was at that point. And it just seemed like anytime the puck was around him, it was going in. And next thing you know, he's throwing the glove up and shooting it down with his stick.
Well, I think the city just kind of got caught up in it all. And, I think the media, the fans, and even our teammates made more about it than Teemu did. And I think that's just the kind of person that he was. He just came to the rink and wanted to play. And I don't think he thought too much about it. And when he needed to score, he did. It was absolutely incredible. And I don't know if we'll ever see somebody do that again the way he did. And again, I don't remember just getting a goal. It was always 2, it was sometimes 3. It never surprised us. It was unreal.
Well, it's easy to talk about all the goals that Teemu Selanne scored, and part of the reason why he was such a popular player, obviously his personality and off ice. Teppo Numminen, though, was the quiet leader and, in a lot of ways, the foundation of that Winnipeg Jet blue line for a long time. What do you remember about coming here first, meeting Teppo, and how important he was to any success the Winnipeg Jets had, even if he didn't quite get the headlines of his fellow Finn?
Well, I had obviously played against Teppo more than Teemu. And I remember coming the day we got traded, kind of reviewing the roster and who was on the team and did I know anybody. You always walk into a room and played with somebody. This was a team I hadn't really known too many of these guys. I remember Teppo being a really solid defenseman, but I didn't realize how good this guy was until you actually got on the ice with him and watched what he did every day. His work ethic and practice. I mean, he never got the credit for being the skilled and offensive and smart puck-moving defenseman that he was. I can arguably say, and I played with Brian Leach in New York, who was truly one of the greatest defensemen, but Teppo wasn't far behind him, if not equally. Some of the stuff that he did was it was so unappreciated until you were actually sharing the ice with him. So he was a thrill to play with, a fun guy to be around. A very quiet guy, as I think you had mentioned, but he's one of my favorite people in the game. And I was lucky enough to see him a couple of weeks ago in Tampa when we were there with the Avalanche and the Blue Jackets. And the only reason he came to the game, that cheap guy, is I got him 4 free tickets. So,
you know what? A lot of Winnipeg fans, listen, when the team left, there was a lot of people that got a little detached from the National Hockey League for a little while, particularly the Coyotes. I don't think there was a big Buffalo Sabres contingent here. But after this, Teppo Numminen had one of the great careers in recent NHL history for defensemen. A full 20 years in the league, almost 1,400 regular season games, and over 1,400 when you include the playoffs. I'd have to suggest that over the last 50 years, he'd be one of the most underrated players amongst average hockey fans in the world.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Just the longevity of his career and what he did. He never took a night off. He was Teppo, the Teppo we needed, and the Teppo that you expected every night. I don't recall this guy ever having a bad game. And, he played a lot of minutes every night. And I think if you go back and look at it, and the teams that were successful that he played on, he was a big part of it. And you're absolutely right. He didn't get the respect he deserved, but boy, oh boy, the guys that play with him certainly realized how important he was.
What was he like off the ice and as a teammate? Because honestly, he was quite quiet. There was a few interviews, but he was obviously a Finn, probably learned English later on. It probably got quite a bit better as he went through, but he was
right.
He was a very popular player. But what would fans not know about Teppo Numminen that you learned during your time as a teammate of his?
Well, he's a very kind player and a very smart and witty guy that is truly loved by his teammates because he was the real deal. And him and Amarit, his wife, were wonderful parts of our team. But Teppo, he was quiet at the rink, just went about his business, but he was certainly one of the guys when it came to doing things together. And he just really liked to be around the team and be around the room. And like I said, I played with lots of guys when you play on 6 teams, and he's probably right up there, 1-2 of my favorite guys I ever played with.
And when talking about Selanne, he, of course, is certainly now a far more gregarious personality. far more out there. Incredibly popular for all those reasons. Was he like that?
I heard I heard he did the presser for the event from his car. Is that right?
He's been known to do that a few times. I do believe he did pop in. Well, he always seemed to be driving. He's always seemed to be driving something. I think that probably drove management.
Likes to drive fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Making them quite nervous in the summer. But was he like that as a rookie? How did maybe he grow during your time as a teammate? As a person off the ice into the guy that he is today.
Teemu got it. I hate saying that because it sounds simple, but he did get it. He knew that he was important to the city at the right time. Fans were able to be proud of the team and proud of a player they really enjoyed. And he liked it there, and he liked his fans, and he spent lots of time with his fans doing the right thing. There was just meeting, greeting, signing autographs. I'll tell you a quick Teemu story. during the outdoor game in Winnipeg, the young girl from our New York events office, had grown up in Anaheim. Her mom and her were season ticket holders. She had told me that her mom was battling cancer, and that when Teemu signed something for her mom, it'd mean a lot to her. So I pulled Teemu aside and I told him the story. And he says, "Well, go get Samantha. Let's talk to her." And he said, "I'm sorry to hear that. Do you have your phone?" She said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, phone your mom." And then he said hello to the mom, took the phone, talked to her for 20 minutes, and came back, hung up, and he said, "I think she'll be okay." So he just, he got it. He was good. He cared about the fans, did the right things. He drove some of his teammates crazy with his hatred of practice and being at the rink, but when he got on the ice, he was all business. And you can overlook certain little things when you kind of deliver what he delivered on a nightly basis. He even though he wasn't there long and I didn't play with him long, I realized I had a chance to play with a real special player.
Kris King is with us, the Senior VP of Hockey Operations for the National Hockey League. I've got to ask you a question more from your NHL role for a second, Kris. We've seen, the NHL go back to Finland recently. Well, they went back a few years ago with the Winnipeg Jets. Patrick Laine, Barkov. There's all these Finnish stars. How would you be able to quantify because we're talking about the effect that these two guys have had here in Winnipeg on this team, this franchise, and everything they did while here. How impactful have they been to the growth of the National Hockey League in Finland and in Europe?
Well, you just, for example, being in Tampa a couple weeks ago, obviously Teppo got a standing ovation and quite a loud one when he dropped the puck on the Saturday night game, because he's from there and he was so involved in the community. He lives there now. There was a lot of other stars that were there, Esatik, and then different members. I think Forsberg was there Friday night. And, when you look at the guys that I played against and they're playing now, Finland's produced some great players. And you said one, Barkov, Laine, of course, they're all from that little town. But, we look back now selfishly of how good our goaltending player, position of guys that were grew up and trained in Finland over the last few years has been incredible. So, Finland's obviously done well in the juniors the last little bit. They've done well in the world tournaments that they've been in. They have a very strong, powerful hockey country. And we forget sometimes how small it is, and population wise, they've done really well, and they definitely produce good people. They're hardworking people, and it shows when you look at Teemu and Teppo, for example, and get to know them. They were raised the right way.
Well, they'll be remembered as incredible players for the Winnipeg Jets, and even better people here in this community, and that's why they're going to the Winnipeg Jets Hall of Fame tomorrow. Kris King is with us. Hey, Kinger, before we go, I've got to ask you, is your fishing season over yet? And did you get out to see Pitt and the Turenne gang out at Aikens Lake this summer?
No, this year was my off year. So I did. Where's my camera? Show you something. I don't know if this is going to work, but there you go.
Oh, we can see it.
Yeah, so I got that Friday. Okay?
Come on.
So Pitt was busting my balls there about a week ago, and he always bothered me after the camp closed that they're on the moose hunt, and I was working and I could never be part of it. And then he says he takes this trip with all his buddies and some of the old guides that I know from Aikens over to Lake of the Woods to chase these big muskies, and he sent me a picture. Oh, look at my 42-incher. So I showed him this 50-incher I caught on Friday up here in Ontario. And then, hang on, see if I can find this one too. So this is a bit of a brag session for me, and I apologize. I'm a bit of an idiot, but oh yeah,
that's what it's all about.
Hang on. Yeah, so you might be able to see the heart on this, but this was this is COVID. So
good Lord.
That was 52 inches. So Pitt's got nothing on me, brother. So I am an unofficial guide at Aikens Lake, but I am taking my wife and my brother and his fiance back there this summer. It's my turn. So.
Well, we'll get out there as well. Maybe if we're lucky, our paths will cross out there.
That would be great, bud.
How long did it take to pull in that monster? 52 inches. I can't even wrap my head around that.
Yeah, the one a couple of years ago, and that might have been the only good thing that came out of COVID. I was able to go fishing and chase them for a week, but that one was a little bit longer. But we're fishing with steel line and dragging big lures. So as you well know from being a fisherman, when you get something that big, you don't want to fight them too long because they're smart. They don't get that big because they're stupid. So that one was probably a minute and a half. The one I got the other day actually came in with like 30 seconds, but we saw it on our electronics chasing bait fish. And 10 seconds after my buddy pointed out to me that she hit, and I had her in about 30 seconds. So, the little skills you learn at Aikens Lake, right?
Work fast, no doubt about it. Well, Kris, listen, thanks so much for doing this. I do hope we cross paths next summer, but in the meantime, all the best to you and everything going on with your work with the National Hockey League. Thanks so much for talking about the two newest inductees of the Jets Hall of Fame as of Thursday night in Teemu Selanne and Teppo Numminen. And obviously, it was great to see you back here when we honored Dale Howard-Chuck a couple months ago.
Hey, let me ask you, how often's Lolly bugging you?
Well, quite often. In fact, I got a late night call from him last night. Usually he doesn't call me after the Knights lose, by the way. This is very rare.
I was going to say, yeah. You probably needed somebody to cry on their verbal shoulder.
You know what? So. He didn't even want to talk about the game, but I'll tell you what, he is a legit Bomber fan. And now that he's working for a team and not in the media, he's all in on the Bombers. So he was telling me about the Grey Cup plans. Like he's going to bring a bunch of the Canadian guys on the nights out downtown in Vancouver, and they've got a little spot for it. So getting ready for the game. But they've had a great start to the season. It actually is just on the way out. Knights, I mean, what a great turnaround that they've had with their new head coach. And I got to tell you, it's pretty fun looking at the Winnipeg Jets near the top or at the top of the Central Division right now after a disappointing season. It's nice to see some of the teams that had disappointing years turn around, especially the people watching Winnipeg Sports Talk right now compared to what last season was like.
Well, I'll put my NHL hat on and say this the right way. Selfishly, we like when the Jets are playing well and our Canadian teams are doing well. I'll take my NHL hat on and put my Jets toque on. I love to see them win it because they deserve it. The city deserves it. And I'm a big fan of Bones, and he's doing a pretty good job. And I'm glad he's back behind the bench where he belongs. And I know Scotty did a hell of a job when he wasn't there. So
it's a great vibe around this team right now. We're really looking forward to this game against the Ducks and a little Saturday night game with Sidney Crosby and the Penguins and the Hurricanes, and we'll see if they can keep it going. It's been a great start to the season. I think something that the team and the fan base really needed, and we'll see what happens this weekend. But first things first, we honor Teemu Selanne and Teppo Numminen and two Jets greats tomorrow into the Jets Hall of Fame. Kris, thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it. Be well, and we'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure. You got my number.